as Drake just released his second Kendrick Lamar diss track. He made this feud between him and Kendrick scarier than ever, but not in the way anybody could have expected. So when it comes to Drake's second song that's aimed at Kendrick Lamar, Made Freestyle, as Drake has nudged Kendrick to respond to him after about a week of waiting since his initial diss push-ups leaked. He just made one of the craziest times in not just rap, but in the entire music industry even crazier, as beyond just coming at Kendrick alone here, he used both the biggest artist in music right now and the biggest threat the industry is facing to belittle Kendrick. And when we look at this in its entirety, while Drake's fans have been praising the OVO rapper for continuing to put the pressure on against his biggest rival, when we look at what this song will represent beyond the beef itself, it could set a dangerous precedent for the larger music industry. So the reason why Made Freestyle is really just an absolute insane moment is that beyond being just a Kendrick diss, Drake doesn't come at him alone here, but on this track, he features Tupac and Snoop Dogg, but not actually them, but AI versions of these two legendary hip-hop icons. But before we can even discuss how irresponsible of a move it may have been to do this on Drake's end for the larger portion of the music industry, first, we need to look at what Drake actually used them to do on the track. Now, as Tupac has been seen as the godfather of West Coast hip-hop and whose presence has played such a direct role in Kendrick's entire career, as his very words have been featured on an album like To Pimp a Butterfly, using the face of the region Kendrick's from to speak to him as Drake awaits a response was definitely a master troll move on Drizzy's end. And as this AI Pac talks directly to Kendrick on this verse, it really shows that more than ever, Drake is willing to do just about anything in this beef, as from the very premise of doing this to the verse AI Pac has, this is really a next level tactical move on Drake's end, whether you love or hate it. Now, as Drake's pen fuels this artificial version of Tupac and tells Kendrick to fight back, Fake Pac tells him to attack Drake through some of the most talked about routes that could be taken to diss him, and this could have potentially just crumbled part of Kendrick's offensive effort for Drake. And as Drake's AI Pac also tells Kendrick that his disses unlike that were weak, and that he can't make threats that he can't back up because he's not truly living the lifestyle that he raps about, with bars like, "You supposed to be the boogeyman, go do what you do. Unless this is a moment that you tell us this is not really you. In that case, there's nothing left to say, I just pass it to Snoop." It shows that Drake is trying to call Kendrick's bluff, and after an entire week of using social media to taunt him and just failing, at least you can say that this is easily the most calculated and diabolical move we have seen from Drake so far when it comes to trying to take the lead against Kendrick. Now, while the ethics of using AI are questionable from a musical standpoint, all in all, this is a creative way for Drake to try to shut down Kendrick, despite how choppy and lifeless this fake version of Pac sounds, as all it is Pac's voice masking Drake's flow. But right alongside Fake Pac, fake Snoop Dogg is featured on the second verse of the track, and as this performance comes from Drake's pen as well, he continues to come at Kendrick here by rapping from the perspective of one of his biggest mentors on the West Coast and how he is disappointed by Kendrick in this very moment. Now, with this fake version of Snoop saying that he is confused and disappointed by Kendrick's lack of a response, and really soaks this in by throwing some nasty bars out, as he even questions the choice of even handing Kendrick the torch of the West Coast as a whole over a decade ago. This performance keeps up the same energy of the first verse, but focuses more on provoking Kendrick to straight up release a diss to defend his honor as opposed to just belittling him. Lines like, "Right now, it's looking like you writing out the game plan on how to lose, how to bark up the wrong tree and then get your head popped in a crowded room. World is watching this chess game, but oh, you out of moves," really punch in this idea. And overall, again, while this fake version of Snoop Dogg sounds so hollow compared to the larger-than-life charisma that the real Snoop has brought throughout his decades worth of performances, knowing that this fake Snoop is rapping bars that were written by Drake in the same cadence that he always uses, it still makes this performance accomplish what it's trying to do. But most importantly on this track, beyond the trolling and intimidation tactics of using fake versions of legendary rappers, the third and final verse on this song comes from Drake in full form, and with Drake following up on what he said on his last diss track, Push-Ups here, he continues to put Kendrick on the hot seat, as he says that his first diss didn't even take him 2 hours to write, and that the next one is going to make Kendrick look like a coward, which is a crazy claim to make. But it does highlight in full force just how much Drake is on the attack here, and while lines like these are really here in an effort to poke Kendrick and get him to drop that response on Drake's time, ultimately, what the diss Drake is really trying to hurt Kendrick with on this track centers around is none other than Taylor Swift, and how the release of her new 31-song album, The Tortured Poets Department, is the reason why he's holding back his response, as he doesn't want to compete with her. Now, while Drake hyping up Taylor and calling her the biggest gangster in the music business is kinda hilarious, what's crazy here is that Drake tries to label Kendrick as a corporate industry puppet, which is really just an absolutely insane thing for him to say. While coming at Kendrick from this angle definitely did give Drake some sort of competitive edge against him in this moment. When you look beyond the lines, it's clear that he is trying to push Kendrick to play against him on his own terms, make him look pathetic, and most importantly, no matter how Drake spins the Taylor Swift effect to try to hurt Kendrick, he knows that deep down inside, if Kendrick's diss is as lethal as some people have said that it is, with her new album that is set to sell over 2 million copies in its first week overshadowing everything else in music right now, it will serve as a shield for Drake that, while may not protect him from the scrutiny of the hip-hop world, will make this potential career-altering attack not affect his reputation in the mainstream, which will, as a result, keep Drake as a brand operating in full force. Now, despite this being the truth on some level for Drake, I have to give him props for the way he's able to flip situations that are against him into things that make him stronger, as well he very well could have been trying to protect himself from Kendrick with all of this. To most people, because of the way Drake has went about this, right now it looks like he has never been more confident in his ability to destroy him. Now, beyond this record as a diss itself, I think while using Pac and Snoop to come at Kendrick was creative as a battle move and is definitely going to get people talking, the precedent that is now set in the music industry because the biggest rapper in the world just featured AI versions of artists on his song could spiral out of control very quickly, and overall is super irresponsible for somebody of Drake's stature to do in an industry where musicians are already fighting to protect their talent and property to avoid having their presence diminished by actual robots. So going forward, with 2 diss tracks under his belt, I'd say that Drake has done a great job at protecting his image in this feud and putting the spotlight back on Kendrick, but still, even though it may seem like to some that Drake is closing in on his biggest rival ever, I don't think Kendrick is fazed by any of this, and while people may get mad at Kendrick in this very moment, ultimately, all of their worries and doubts will be put to rest when he does release a response, and while he needs to definitely get something out in a timely fashion, whatever Kendrick has planned, I don't think any of these moves from Drake have changed his strategy, especially considering that Kendrick is rumored to drop a new album in May, but if any of Drake's moves did, while people may be ready to hear Kendrick, by changing his strategy to compete against Drake, he would be playing right into Drake's hand by giving him what he wants, so I think we are still going to have to sit for a little longer for Kendrick, but as Drake took 3 weeks to respond, to not even give Kendrick a full week before clowning him is kinda hypocritical. Now, as Snoop Dogg has already reacted to Drake using an AI version of him by pretty much just being so confused that all he could do is laugh, it's going to be interesting and important to see how the people who were around Death Row Records and especially Tupac feel about having an artist who is no longer hears voice used on a record from a rapper as big as Drake, and while some people tried to justify the ethical side of Drake doing this by comparing it to Kendrick using Pac's voice on Mortal Man, and for having deepfakes in his Heart Part 5 music video, this comparison doesn't make any sense at all when you look beyond the surface, as Tupac's words on Mortal Man actually came from an interview of his and he had permission to use them from Pac's mother, and with the deepfakes, Kendrick was using people who he had genuine connections with like Kobe Bryant and Nipsey Hussle, and he did this to honor their legacies and everything they represented, so comparing this to Drake just using a legacy artist to antagonize his rival, this comparison just doesn't make any sense, and while Drake may have won the battle tonight, long term this move can end up doing way more harm for him. So let me know, at this point in the Drake and Kendrick beef, who is winning, and going forward, what do you think is going to happen next? I can't wait to hear what you have to say about all this, and if you want to see my video where I rank Drake and Kendrick's albums head to head to find out who the better artist is, check out the suggested video.